So y'all saw my title, right? And I know it's a little bit confusing. If you understand ancient Mesopotamia, they had like lots of kings and was an advanced like civilization. They had a couple hundred laws, which I'll put down in the description for how you should live your life, called the Code of Hammurabi. And those were ways in which you could live your life. But the Code of Hammurabi was a way to straighten people out. I don't think there's an extent to how these laws were really used in society, simply that they were probably found on tablets and recorded, and we have it in modern times. Now, in modern world, we would think that Hammurabi is a hard way to live today. I'll leave that interpretation up to y'all. See this article right here. So what happened was, because I read the entire article, there was a known thief in town who was taking a shortcut. This is his story. To go through a church. And some of the church members and the pastor's son held him down while the pastor's son called his father, who was the pastor. They must have known this guy was a thief, because the pastor shows up in a van, I believe, and already had a machete on hand. They get in the van, drag him out, drive out to the bush, and then hold him down while he's pleading and stating, I really didn't steal anything from the church. And the pastor's like, we're going to teach him what we do to thieves. So what the pastor proceeds to do is cut the man's hands off. Then the pastor, his son, and the other assailants who work in the church jumped in the van and left the man there bleeding. Several eyewitnesses freaked out and didn't want to get involved. And finally, some security forces was called. I guess that's what they call the police in South Africa. I really don't know much about South Africa. There's very little I can remember about my studies with apartheid, but other than that, don't know. So, long story short, pastor, his son, and all of those others who participated get arrested. 2 weeks later, in a search, they find the man's decomposing hands in the woods where he was chopped. And these crazies actually left the machete sitting there. If you know anything about forensics, it's going to be evidence that your fingerprints were on there because you chopped his hands and ran. And you didn't take the weapon and dispose of it anywhere. They literally found the machete right by the man's now decomposing hands, which were put in an evidence bag. There's a whole lot of this vigilante justice, evidently, or justice crimes going on in South Africa right now. See, the chopping of the hands, that's why I entitled this video what I titled it, comes from the Code of Hammurabi. Those laws that mean immediate and swift justice in the ancient times. Look, I'll be the first one to tell you, I can't stand people with sticky fingers. I don't like thieves. But I'm happy we live in modern times, because now all of them are being charged with attempted murder because of the way he bled out despite the fact he survived. Even his father admitted he's a thief. The man admitted he was a thief, but he wasn't trying to take from the church. And he admitted that he thieved to use drugs. It's my opinion, probably because I'm a product of my generation, that cutting the man's hands off was a little extreme. But in ancient times, people thought nothing about chopping your hands off in that Hammurabi time in Mesopotamia. I wish we had better records to show this, but the laws are there. And perhaps you won't find that exact law in the Code of Hammurabi, but there were laws that said for each time you get caught thieving, I think you're supposed to lose a limb. So people knew this man was a thief for drugs. I mean, it happens in society. What makes someone who's a pastor of a church, and from my understanding of the article, this was a well-respected clergyman where he lives in South Africa. What makes you decide to take this type of justice out on someone? And it reminds me sometimes of defund the police here, which I'm not going to get into. Has it gotten so drastic in South Africa that this man thought he had no choice, which he did? You didn't have to chop the man's hands off. But is this the new world we're going to be entering, where we're going to take swift justice on people if there's no law enforcement around? I don't agree with it. But then again, I sit from a privilege in the United States that our laws don't allow that. If anything, I think they could get you for attempted murder here on that as well. I'm not real sure. I guess that goes and varies from state to state. But this dude is a whole pastor out here and had the respect of his community, and him, his son, and some of the workers in the church now face prison time because they went and chopped this man's hands off. When I saw the story pop up, because I was on my lunch break at the time, on my half-hour lunch, I checked my phone. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I came home much later, read the story, and it's true. I think it's interesting that sometimes some people turn back to ancient laws for cosmic justice. So that's one of the reasons I've decided to leave the Code of Hammurabi for you all to read through the laws if you like. I found the link, and tell me what you think. You don't have to read all 3, 4, how many ever 100 of laws there are. I just thought this story was interesting. Tell me what you think. Should a person with sticky fingers lose those fingers? I don't personally think so, and let me put that out there. And matter of fact, I would tell you to think that question in your head. Don't type out your answer. But one of the main reasons that I put this up is because I think, unfortunately, that more of this so-called justice is just leading us to what we've seen in the movie Purge. If we don't like this behavior in society, screw waiting for law enforcement. We're going to take matters in our own hands. It's ridiculous now to think that this can happen in the United States. But sadly, the way things are going, never say never.